So Phil, we had a lot of fun putting together our last video on SWOT analysis. You've always said that market segmentation and target marketing is a critical function of the marketing team. Can you explain how you teach that in your class?
Okay, well, the first thing is segmentation is really the foundation upon which you build your marketing mix. So it's important to do good segmentation, target marketing as a lead into building the marketing mix.
Okay, so where do you start out students on this?
Well, I start them with the question of what is a market, which seems straightforward, but is somewhat difficult. And the thing I try to drive home to students is that you have to define a market based on people or organizations capable of making purchase decisions. So, for example, buyers of automobiles is a market. Automobiles is not a market. It's an industry or a segment of the economy.
This difference between products and buyers seems quite subtle.
It is, but it's really important. Basically, the reason it's important is because buyers change habits and attitudes and tastes. And if you're not attuned to those buyers and their changing habits and attitudes, you might miss important changes in the marketplace. So, for example, if you were a film company back in 1990 and defining yourself as being in the film market, you might have missed the change of consumer taste towards digital cameras. If you were, on the other hand, a company that was defining itself around capturing of family memories, for example, you might have captured that change and been in a much better position in the long run in the marketplace. And in fact, several film companies did suffer because they were defining themselves around being film companies.
So keep the focus on people.
People or organizations, yes.
Not products.
Yes.
Okay, so what's next in segmentation?
Okay, so the first thing I have students do is they decide what segmentation model they're going to use. And there's a number of ways to go about segmenting a market. So one is demographic. We look at age, we look at income, we look at gender, we look at education level, those kinds of things in order to segment a market. Another one is geographic. So it's based on where the customers are that we serve. Benefit sought is a third way of looking at markets. So what are people trying to get out of our products? Psychographics, what's going on in the heads of the consumer. For this, I like to use the example of men in midlife crisis buying red sports cars. It's nothing demographic, it's what they're feeling in their head that's causing them to do that. You have usage rate, how much of something are they buying? And there's all kinds of others, actually.
So would marketers choose just one of these segmentation models?
Absolutely not. In reality, they might use 2 or even 3 or 4 of these in putting together their full segmentation model. I usually have students concentrate on just one in order to get the concepts down. But for example, a company might be making nutritional products, that is, a benefit sought type of segmentation, and specifically for women, which is a gender segmentation.
Okay, so once you've defined your market and your model, what's next?
Well, we need to go through how we actually lay out our segments. So for example, here I have an example of consumers of breakfast cereal. And I've done a model segmentation by age. And the segments are 1 to 3, 4 to 11, 12 to 18, 19 to 54, and 55 plus. How did I choose those? I just kind of roughly did it out of my head based on my experience, being a kid and growing up and eating different cereals as I became an adult. But in reality, companies would do this through market research, for example, asking consumers what they like, trying to divide up markets based on different age groups and what they want in a cereal.
So you're using age segmentation here. Why not benefit sought?
Absolutely. For breakfast cereal, that could be another really legitimate model for segmentation. So I have a second one here, benefit sought, and in this case I have daily vitamins, sugar high, nutritional balance, fiber, and dietary, athletic conditioning, morning boost, healthy snack. Those are all different benefits somebody might get out of a breakfast cereal.
Okay, so once you've undertaken these segmentation activities, how do you know if you've done it right?
Well, the flip answer is, I say, if it works, you have it right. And ultimately, that's what you have to do, is test your segmentation against the marketplace and see how it works. But there's also 4 basic criteria that we look at. One, is the segment identifiable? Is it sizable and measurable? Is it reachable? Can we get to it? And is it responsive? Does it respond with purchase behavior or interest to what we are offering to it?
So if you're saying that a market is not large enough, it's not sizable enough, that it's not worth perhaps pursuing? Or it's not a valid segment?
It's really not a valid segment in most cases. I mean, there are theoretically markets of one, but we usually want to go after market segments that are larger in size.
Okay, so after we've done the segmentation, then you create a marketing mix for each identified segment?
Well, no, that would be a very expensive way to go about things. What we usually do is we choose a targeting strategy, and there's basically 3 targeting approaches that are used. One is undifferentiated. That means we create a marketing mix that addresses the entire market with the same product price, distribution, and promotion. A second one is concentrated, where we take and we focus on 1 or 2 market segments and deliver a marketing mix to those segments. And then the third is multi-segment, which we address many or all the segments of the market with a different marketing mix. So, for example, you can think of Procter & Gamble in laundry detergent, where they have literally something like 15 different brands of laundry detergent, all of which address different segments in the marketplace.
Okay, well, looking at this, the multi-segment approach sounds quite expensive. You're developing a separate marketing mix for each target market. Is it necessary?
It is expensive, and it usually isn't an approach you're going to take unless you're a fairly big company. So if you're a startup company, you're probably not going to do a multi-segment approach. You're probably going to use a concentrated approach. But for a larger company, it's really a cost saver because, for example, if they have one product that appeals to teenage girls, they want to focus their promotional dollars on reaching places where those teenage girls, magazines are going to read, social media that they're going to hang out on, television programs that they're going to watch, instead of going in Field and Stream magazine, for example, which might not reach them at all.
Well, this gives me a lot to take to my class.
Yeah.
Thanks for the lecture.
You're welcome.